Welcome, everyone. I'm Erica Hartquist, Communications Officer here at the Oregon Health Authority. Thank you so much for attending. We have some guidelines about today's media availability. As many of you know, when you want to ask a question, please use the raise your hand function, and we'll add you to the queue to ask your question to our experts. We're here today to address excessive alcohol use and the harms that it causes, an important health issue for the entire state of Oregon. And we will also give you a look at a really innovative new campaign that OHA just launched to change the conversation about drinking alcohol and to help build healthier communities. And we've introduced this campaign right as summer starts. So it's full time of events, right? Occasions where we celebrate with often excessive drinking. And we want this very important campaign launched a week ago Monday. So it's already been out into the world, and we want to share it with you, our media partners, because right now is the time for festivals, weddings, river outings, barbecues. And today we have with us Rachel Banks, Public Health Division Director here at OHA. We have Dr. Tom Jean, OHA's Deputy State Health Officer and Deputy State Epidemiologist. And we're also joined by Mara Sargent. She's the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Other Drug Prevention and Education Coordinator with the Benton County Health Department. Benton County Health Department. So thank you so much for being here as well, Mara. And Rachel, I'll let you start things off today.
Thank you, Erica, and good morning, everyone. It's great to have you here. So we've launched the Rethink the Drink campaign because people living in Oregon may be drinking too much alcohol and not realize it. If you're like me, you may have never actually gotten a definition of excessive or binge drinking and only had the reference that excessive or binge drinking was associated with red Solo cups filled to the brim or people being passed out on the couch in a college party. But now I've learned that that's not the case. So we need a new way to think about alcohol. Our data is telling us that many adults have crossed the line into drinking too much, partly because our society makes it so easy. The Rethink the Drink campaign is not telling people to stop drinking. We're asking that they pause for a moment, learn what harmful drinking is, and think about the way that alcohol is showing up in our own lives and in our own communities. We are proud to say in Oregon that, as far as we know, this is the first broad-scale statewide campaign of its kind for any state in the country. Of course, wanting to acknowledge that communities, tribes, and local public health have been doing work on alcohol, tobacco, and other drug prevention for many years, and we hope that this campaign supports that work. Reducing alcohol use is a complex and important work for public health. And while we're talking in this campaign about individual behaviors, we know that our health choices are really determined by what's around us and how easy or how difficult society makes it for us to make healthier choices. We have data showing us that alcohol consumption has increased during the pandemic as people have coped with the stress and changes to daily life caused by the virus. Certain populations experience even more unjust stressors for a longer term and disadvantages due to racism and discrimination, which has led to higher density of alcohol in some communities and higher rates of alcohol-related harms. These include communities of color, as well as communities living with lower education and those living with lower income. So the goals of our campaign are really threefold. We want to begin a conversation to reduce excessive alcohol consumption in Oregon, which is a risk factor for many harmful health and safety outcomes, including alcohol use disorder. Second, we want to reduce excessive alcohol use at a population level to really create a ripple effect across multiple long and short-term outcomes, such as youth prevention of alcohol use, injuries, chronic diseases, and death. And lastly, we want to reinforce local activities and help spark conversations about community needs around reducing excessive alcohol use. We have extensive research and have done statewide focus groups that show people are ready to talk about drinking and the way that alcohol affects our lives. Through involvement by community partners and tribes throughout the state has helped us to inform the development of this campaign. And so we're happy to share with you all today the campaign that we just launched, Rethink the Drink. With that, I'll
Great,
turn it back to you, Erica. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Director Banks. All right, well, now we're going to hear from Mara Sargent with the Benton County Health Department. Thank you for being here, Mara.
Thank you. Good morning. As Erica said, I'm Mara Sargent and I work with Benton County Health Department. I was part of the group of community partners that helped develop Rethink the Drink. And I'm really excited to see this project, which has literally been years in the making, come to life. Something that I really enjoyed about the process was learning from the diverse group that was assembled to inform the project. So we had members of different tribes, we had some treatment providers, we had other ADPEP coordinators like myself. There's just a huge diverse group to inform this campaign. And it was really energizing to hear so many perspectives and see how the campaign came together as an amalgamation of everyone's ideas and input. I'm really eager to incorporate this new and novel campaign into our local work in Benton County. We have quite a few unique partnerships at the county level. And one way we utilize these partnerships to reduce risk and harm in our region is by hosting a retailer training. And these trainings educate employees of alcohol, cannabis, and tobacco retailers and servers on safely serving and selling alcohol, tobacco, and cannabis. They also increase confidence in identifying intoxicated patrons and some information and education regarding the laws and responsibilities of those positions. We work really closely with bars and restaurants, dispensaries, law enforcement, Oregon State University, and many, many others to put on these trainings. These mutually beneficial partnerships that we've developed allow information to be shared both from us to the community and to us from the community. We're really excited to see how Rethink the Drink will help spark new conversations with our community to reduce excessive alcohol use. We have a really diverse population in Benton County that spans ages, ethnicities, and we have, a big university at OSU, and then we have more rural areas like Monroe and Alsea. We can really envision many ways that Rethink the Drink can enhance our work to reduce the burden of excessive alcohol use. We also work with a diverse group of partners throughout our county that we think will be really interested in how this campaign can help advance their local goals to reduce the harms and risks of excessive alcohol use as well. Some of the data that Rachel just shared and some more data that Dr. Jean will share coming up here will really put into perspective why Rethink the Drink is pertinent to us in Oregon right now. Excessive alcohol use causes health harms, fiscal losses, and can really be detrimental to our communities as a whole. By asking people to put some thought into their drinking habits, we really hope to lessen the burden of harm of excessive alcohol and the harm of excessive drinking can cause. So thank you, and I will turn it back to Erica.
Thank you, Mara. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Tom Jean, who's going to introduce us to the slideshow and show several visuals.
Thank you, Erica, and good morning, everybody. Again, Dr. Tom Jean, Deputy State Health Officer and Epidemiologist. And so we've got some visuals for you, starting here with the Rethink the Drink logo that you'll be seeing and may have already been seeing throughout this campaign in Oregon. So we're going to provide some more details and examples from the campaign in a moment. But first, I want to reiterate the goals of the campaign. So next slide. So Rethink the Drink aims to begin a conversation which can help reduce harmful health outcomes from excessive alcohol use, from short-term to long-term effects across all ages and populations, and really to help engage people and communities across Oregon to think about excessive alcohol use. Next slide. So who's the audience of this campaign? Well, excessive drinking is a really common behavior. More than 1 in 5 Oregon adults drink excessively. So the audience is really all adults in Oregon, whether you drink or not. Excessive alcohol use is an issue that cuts across public health and safety. Altogether, excessive alcohol use costs Oregon $4.8 billion every year in negative impacts. So that includes healthcare expenses, it includes motor vehicle crashes, it includes criminal justice costs and lost productivity. So that comes down to a cost of $1,100 per year for each person in Oregon. It affects worker productivity, it affects the safety of our transportation system, crime, domestic violence, addiction, as well as sexually transmitted diseases and other health harms. And it's not just a problem for high school or college kids. We know that people in their 30s and 40s binge drink at close to the same rates as younger people. So again, this is really targeted at all adults in Oregon. Next slide. We've been talking a lot about excessive drinking, so let's explain exactly what we mean by that. The Oregon Health Authority uses the definition of excessive alcohol use from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. So excessive drinking includes both heavy drinking and binge drinking. So binge drinking is when a man has 5 or more standard drinks on one occasion, and for women, it's 4 or more drinks. On the other hand, heavy drinking, which is the kind of drinking that can harm health in the long term, especially, that's 15 or more drinks a week for a man and 8 drinks or more a week for a woman. So basically, that would be more than 1 drink a day for a woman or more than 2 drinks a day for a man. The CDC numbers are different for men and women because their bodies process alcohol differently. However, it's important to point out that the CDC numbers refer to cisgender males and females. Cisgender means that the gender you identify with matches the sex assigned to you at birth. When it comes to gender non-conforming individuals, we really need more research to assess the impact of excessive drinking. However, there are tools that can be found on the Rethink the Drink website for any person of any gender to assess their alcohol use. I also wanted to point out that about 90% of people who drink excessively, who meet these definitions, they don't meet the criteria for having an alcohol use disorder. So this campaign is one piece of the puzzle to prevent severe alcohol use disorder as well, which is previously known as alcohol dependence or alcoholism. But again, the vast majority of people who are drinking excessively do not meet that definition of alcoholism or alcohol use disorder. And then finally, it's true that for some people, drinking any alcohol is too much. And no matter who you are, drinking less is better for your health than drinking more. Next slide. So the health harms from excessive drinking are considerable, and many people don't realize that they're drinking too much. Excessive alcohol use is the 3rd leading cause of preventable death in Oregon. It's responsible for over 2,000 deaths each year. Excessive drinking contributes to many adverse health outcomes, but some of the significant ones to highlight would be liver disease. That includes fatty liver disease, alcohol-related hepatitis, and cirrhosis. Alcohol consumption raises the risk of developing certain cancers, including head and neck cancers, esophageal cancer, liver cancer, colorectal cancer, and breast and prostate cancer. Excessive alcohol use increases the risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. And alcohol can also trigger mood and behavioral changes or make them worse, including depression, anxiety, memory loss, and alcohol dependency. And finally, it's important to highlight that the negative harms from excessive use of alcohol don't fall evenly. As Director Banks mentioned, they disproportionately affect communities experiencing other health and economic inequities, including communities of color, as well as people with lower incomes and less education. And that's actually despite the fact that these populations overall have consumption rates of alcohol that are generally lower than white Oregonians. Next slide. So we recognize that the alcohol industry provides thousands of jobs for Oregonians and that we make some of the world's finest beers, wines, and spirits. At the same time, excessive drinking carries heavy costs for all of us, whether we drink or not. It affects everyone from children and families to businesses and taxpayers. So we just want to acknowledge that this is a complex issue. And let's be clear about what this campaign is. We're not telling people to stop drinking. We do support our local industry, However, we need to talk about how excessive alcohol use is affecting us as a community, and if we could be handling this issue in a healthier way. And with that, I'll pass it back to Erica.
Thank you so much. So we're continuing with the slide deck to show our media partners what the Rethink the Drink campaign includes. So throughout the next several weeks and months, you will see TV, radio, print, and digital ads in both English and Spanish, Facebook and Instagram pages. And there is already a website, an active website in both English and Spanish, rethinkthedrink.com. Next slide, please. This is an example of one of the many videos that have been put together. This one is in English and it's called How Many Drinks in a Week? Now, before we play it, it is a little digitized here in this Zoom, but once we send the Dropbox link for our media partners, you'll have a much more smooth version. But this is just to show you now.
I don't think I've ever answered that question honestly.
Probably 6 to maybe 12.
15, 16, 17.
Before COVID or during?
You can have more than me.
And I usually do.
I don't know. How many should I have?
So that is the first of two videos we're going to show you. This one is called This Guy. Take a look.
Binge drinking, you might think, is mostly this guy. But it can also be this guy. Or her. A lot of us, actually. It's easier than we think to be drinking at levels that can cause real damage to our health, raising our risks for long-term problems like heart disease, cancer, and depression. Maybe it's time to rethink the drink. More at rethinkthedrink.com.
Great. And this is called Sneaky. It's one of the radio ads.
When work gets crazy, I like to stop by the bar after, have a few cold ones.
Yeah, I don't drink at all until 4 o'clock.
We limit ourselves to 1 bottle of wine a night.
Excessive drinking has a way of sneaking up on us. A few drinks, a few nights a week, it can add up. And suddenly, we're at greater risk for long-term problems like heart disease, cancer, and depression. Reason enough to rethink the drink. More at rethinkthedrink.com.
And as you may or may not have seen already, these are our print, digital, and social ads that are already out there. So you'll see them. They talk about drinking less, living longer. That's literally the recipe. Excessive drinking has a way of sneaking up on us. And these are 3 examples of print, digital, and social ads. Next slide, please. And these are the infographics. It's a really nice visual way to break down and show those living in Oregon who may be drinking too much and not even realizing it. The one on the far right, for example, gives an example IPA and talks about what a standard drink is and that all drinks are not the same. It sort of helps define visually what a standard drink is. Next slide, please. So this is something that we thought was important to share with you, our media friends. So it's really important to be mindful about the language and visuals used for news stories to avoid stigmatizing and triggering folks. So person-centered language, right? Phrases like people who consume alcohol excessively or people with an alcohol use disorder instead of phrases such as addicts, alcoholics, excessive alcohol drinkers. So always providing alcohol use disorder support resources as well in your news stories, perhaps a link to help, a link with more information for folks, just additional information for your viewers or listeners or readers to help provide that that outreach support. And obviously, we can't say this enough, headlines matter. And we really are trying at OHA to help avoid you know what I'm saying, sensationalizing. So that's what we've been talking about with this whole campaign, and really hoping this guidance for you reporters out there will help, you know, kind of change the narrative a little bit And I believe, is that our last slide? Okay, so now we are ready for questions. Again, we have Dr. Tom Jean, Director Banks, and Mara Sargent on hand and ready to answer your questions. If you have a question, I'd love to call on you. Please raise your hand and we'll add you to the queue. I know that was a lot of information to digest just now. So, all right, we have our first question from Christina. Go ahead, Christina.
Hi, sorry, 1 second here. Just making sure I'm opening okay, I'm not on mute. Great, thanks. Wondering first off, how much this campaign is costing and where those funds are coming from.
I can take that, Christina. It's actually a short answer. I need to go back and check in on exactly where it's costing and the funding sources, and we'll get that information back to you.
Thank you for that question. And also pointing out, as Dr. Jean mentioned, $4.8 billion every year in negative impacts is what excessive drinking is costing those in Oregon. So Christina, do you have another question or is your hand?
Yeah, I do, thanks. Just wondering, there are a lot of studies that indicate, these public information campaigns are not as helpful as, say, funding rehabilitation programs or other community involvement programs. Is this, are any of funds going towards that as well?
So thank you for that question. Indeed, we know that alcohol prevention and other preventions benefit most from a comprehensive approach, that mass communications is a part of that, as well as a range of other prevention and treatment services. At Oregon Health Authority, we have a variety of programs and divisions that do support treatment, whether that's through our Medicaid services, through our behavioral health program, as well as investments in behavioral health that Oregonians made through Measure 110. So this campaign in itself is focused on the communications aspect, but as part of a tapestry of prevention and intervention services that Oregon Health Authority and local partners offer.
Thank you for that question. We have a question that was added to the chat. Angela Dixon with KVAL in Eugene having trouble with the microphone. So I'll read the question. Her question is there a way to measure how many people will actually pay attention to the campaign and in turn change their behavior?
So I'll jump in on that one. Yes, we're working with supports, and as well as we have an alcohol and prevention program or a health promotion program to understand in terms of reach and viewing. I think behavior change is complicated. And so as we're measuring, definitely from a public health perspective, we measure alcohol use over time. And so we'll definitely be measuring that over time. But there are things like understanding how many people are going to the website, just the reach and view that we'll be looking at shorter term to understand how successful the campaign is.
Yeah, and if I could add as well to what Director Banks said, we've in the past conducted a alcohol formative audience assessment where we kind of looked at Oregonians and their understanding of alcohol and their perceptions and behaviors, and that's certainly the kind of thing that can be done to in the future to see how things may change as a result of this and other public health efforts.
Thank you so much for that question and for your input, Director Banks and Dr. Tom Jean. If there are no other questions, I know we presented a lot more than a usual news release. We did an entire slide deck. I also wanted to point out to everyone on the Zoom today that we're going to be sending out a news release right after this with a link to this media availability, as well as a Dropbox link. As I mentioned, there will be the videos and the audio and all of that available, just everything you need, including talking points. I see Christina has a follow-up. Go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, wasn't letting me unmute. Thanks. Yeah, I'm just wondering, you guys mentioned training to retailers. How is that different from the training and the requirements that OLCC already has for those providing alcohol and cannabis?
So I can take this. The retailer training that we put on at the county level, we partner with OLCC, and OLCC comes out to assist in explaining what the OLCC guidelines are. So it's sort of the us at the county level assisting newer employees of retailers and servers, and we provide the information from OLCC so they have a better grasp of what is expected of them from OLCC. But we also have information about cannabis 101, alcohol 101, the health impacts of these substances. Law enforcement comes in and talks about the involvement that substances have in their interaction with the community. We have the fire department come out and talk about fire occupancy. We do a lot more education, and we do practicing of how to read an ID, how to tell if someone is intoxicated, and how to refuse service. So it's just a little bit more than what OLCC requires. It's a little bit more in depth, and it's optional for servers and retailers to attend, but we usually do have a pretty good turnout because of the partnerships that we've created with this diverse group of people across the county, and they trust us to provide them with information that's going to help them be successful and keep people safe.
Thank you, Mara. That's a great answer. I also wanted to mention that we have, in 2020, we put out at OHA an alcohol retail marketing and product availability report, and we can send you all a link to that if you'd like to look at it. But it really kind of sheds some light on the alcohol marketing and advertising that happens in retail locations in Oregon, and also illustrates how some of the flavors and prices can appeal to youth, and some of the other problems with the retail environment right now. So there's some great data that we can share with you there as well.
Thank you so much for that great question. It doesn't look like we will have any other questions either in the chat or any other folks needing to be added to the queue. I've included the campaign visuals and supporting documents that can be downloaded. Oh, Christina has a follow-up. Go ahead, Christina.
Sorry,
just in the nick of time.
Sorry, I know I've asked a lot of questions. I put this in the chat too. I just wanting to know when that cost, you guys mentioned you don't know yet or don't have it available right now, when that would be available to the public?
We have it pretty accessible. I know that I've seen it, so I can send it to you pretty quick.
Okay, yeah, I'm just wanting to make sure I could get it today for the story, which I guess would be a 2 to 3 p.m. deadline.
Erica, you're on mute.
Pardon me. Here we go. So Rebecca Garza has put it in the chat for you.
Oh, okay, thanks.
So that should be helpful as well. So if there are no other questions, again, go to the news release. We're going to be sending out within moments of this. It includes the YouTube link to today's media availability, as well as the Dropbox for the slide deck. But the Dropbox is also listed in the chat for today. If there are no other questions, we want to thank you all for your time. We know it was a lot, but we wanted to share with you the entire slide deck and show you this campaign because it's so important. And thank you so much for everyone's time this morning, and have a great